You're listening to the Global Ed Podcast, where educators share inspiring and thought-provoking stories from around the world.
In this episode of the podcast, I speak with Ramon. Ramon is the principal of George Jackson Academy, which is located in Manhattan, New York City. Welcome to the podcast, Ramon.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Gavin. It's a pleasure to be here.
New York City is the largest city in the United States and one of the world's major global cities. Located in the state of New York, the city has a population of 8.2 million with an area of 321 square miles, making it the most densely populated city in North America.
Ramon, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm a New Yorker, born and raised in New York. My story always starts with my grandma. She came to this country in 1962 after the fall of a 30-year dictatorship. From the Dominican Republic. My mom followed a few years later, and then my family eventually settled in Washington Heights in New York City. Predominantly Latino neighborhood, low income, and it has all of the things that come with poverty, a good sense of community, and some of the struggles that can happen with low income areas. I got into a program called Prep for Prep, and through Prep, I went to a school called the Hackley School, and I had a 5-day boarding program. So Hackley was in Westchester County, which is a pretty affluent suburb of New York City. And I would spend the week at Hackley from Sunday night to Thursday night. And then on Fridays, I would come back home to Washington Heights. And Gavin, it was like living in two universes. Hackley was predominantly white and affluent. Washington Heights was predominantly Latino, low income. And learning how to navigate that during my adolescence from 7th grade to 12th grade was probably the most formative experience of my life. And it definitely kind of put me in tune with the ways in which we develop our identity and the systems and contexts in which we do that and what that can mean for the outcomes of our life.
Would it be fair to say that the Prep for Prep program had a fairly significant impact on your life?
Yeah, I mean, school definitely changed the trajectory, right? So had I not gone to Prep and then gone to Hackley, I don't think I would have gone to Williams College, which was the top school in this country. So going to Prep and then going to Hackley, I think it absolutely changed the trajectory of my life, 100%.
Did this experience help to prepare you for the work that you do with the young people in your current role?
It did down the line, especially the idea of what it means to form your identity within different contexts. That experience in particular, which was sparked by going to a 5-day boarding school and kind of navigating two worlds, that I think that definitely influenced what I do today.
So you're the current principal of the George Jackson Academy. So could you tell me about the academy and also about the students that it serves?
George Jackson Academy is a special place. It's an all-boys middle school, grades 6 through 8. We work with bright boys from all over New York City, Long Island, and parts of New Jersey. And we focus on families from low income and low wealth families. And historically, we've been predominantly boys of color, of all ethnicities and religions. And our boys are with us from 6th grade to 8th grade. And then they go off to top high schools in New York City and outside, and boarding schools outside of New York City.
So I know that the school's located in New York, but where in Manhattan is it?
So our school is located in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, right, which is all the way in the southern eastern end of the island of Manhattan. People forget that it's an island, I think. Our building, it's a small building. We've got 3 floors and a cafeteria. We don't have a gym. We don't have a theater, but we have a lot of love and a lot of learning that happens in our building. The day starts at 8 o'clock. We expect the boys to be there before. It goes till 3:15. And then we have an optional free after-school offerings. We have 3 classes in the morning, and then we have an hour recess. And for recess, we get a hot lunch from the Archdiocese, and we pack it up, and we walk over to the park. It's about a block and a half away, and we bring our lunch. The boys go and play in the park. It's pretty cool. It's a skater park, and the skaters, they stop skating when we come, and they just kind of hang out. So they let the boys play, which is really cool. It's just a real community feel to it.
We know the cost of living in New York City has skyrocketed. Pay hikes are not keeping up with inflation. A new study out today says the true cost of living has gotten so high, half of the families in the 5 boroughs do not have enough income to make ends meet. They need some kind of assistance.
A true cost of living report found costs in New York City have increased 131%, while median earnings went up just 71%. 36% of households lacked enough income for basic needs just 3 years ago. Now half of all New Yorkers are struggling. 3 million of them can't afford food.
What's the mission of the school, and what sort of students and families is it looking to serve?
Yeah, I mean, the mission of the school is to help bright boys from all economic backgrounds to excel in high school and beyond, right? That's a kind of condensed version of the mission. And so it's really a place in which we're trying to create more opportunities for boys, right, who might not have access to these kinds of the eventual high schools that our graduates go to. So we have a lot of families. A lot of our families are low income or low wealth, right? Meaning they just, A, they don't make a lot of money, or B, maybe they make a higher income combined, but they have a lot of expenses, so they don't have any money left over for vacations or savings. And so our families are predominantly people of color. So Black, African descent, Latino, Hispanic, Asian, South Asian. We have families that practice Islam, Christianity, Hinduism. Many religions are represented in our community as well. And they come from all 5 boroughs in New York City and Long Island, and a few kids come from Jersey as well.
What is it that attracts the boys and their families to be part of what you offer as a school?
The all boys environment is special, right? They're definitely all boys schools in New York City, but that, first of all, that's the first piece, right? Do I want an all boys space? That's a very big question because that's what we do. The second thing is we talk a lot about brotherhood, Gavin, a lot about brotherhood, right? This idea that, men are given a few options as to how they can be. There are only a few emotions that they're allowed to express or communicate. And the reality is that men are full human beings with the whole host of emotions available to them. And so part of what I think families are looking for is the opportunity to be in a place that's going to push their child academically, but it's going to nurture them as a person. And it's going to help them expand what it means to be a boy and a man, just from an emotional perspective, that you have access to the whole range of human emotions. So they're looking for the academics, but they're also looking for that nurturing environment that focuses on boys.
From the classroom to the workplace, many American boys and men are struggling. There have been decades of efforts to empower women and girls, especially over the last few years. But in his new book, scholar Richard Reeves says that not enough attention is being paid to their male counterparts.
The class gaps that we've looked at, the stubborn race gaps we've looked at, also intersect with some gender gaps. So the more I looked at some of the trends in economic inequality and educational inequality, the more I started seeing some gender gaps, but not in the way that we're perhaps used to talking about gender gaps. We're used to talking about gender inequality in a way that disfavors women and girls. And of course, there are plenty of those still to tackle. But increasingly, I was seeing evidence that many men, especially Black men and men who are working class or from poorer backgrounds, really struggling in education, in employment, and in the family.
What's your approach to giving the boys a sense of belonging at the school, and how do you seek to shape their character as they turn from boys to men?
One, we're greeting every boy in the morning, every day. So the kids coming in, I'm shaking every boy's hand. I know every boy's name. Our entire staff knows every boy's name. We're small by intention, right? We're intentionally small. And that's part of it. We know every boy. The second piece is we're talking to them about these core values. And one of them is empathy, right? We have courage, integrity, empathy, and leadership. Those are our 4 core values. Empathy is one of our core values, meaning that is something we believe that empathy is a skill that you have to practice and develop and continue to practice, because it's an invaluable skill, I think, in any profession. Whether you're in a helping profession, whether you're in a corporate profession, the ability to understand the perspective of someone else is incredibly useful for a variety of reasons. And I think the fact that we're trying to work with our boys around developing empathy for middle school boys, I think that's different. And I think that's something that makes our school special. So our boys leave with a strong sense of empathy. And I think that's a part of being an effective leader. I think a successful human. I think a good person. And that's a big part of what we're trying to do as well.
It's really interesting that empathy is intentionally one of your school's core values. Could you talk me through your other school values and how you teach these to the boys?
So the 4 core values are courage, integrity, empathy, and they all, I think, are essential to leadership, which is the 4th core value. So that idea of courage is being able to stand up and do the difficult thing even when you're scared, right? So for example, public speaking. we have a 6th grade public speaking day, a 7th grade public speaking, and an 8th grade public speaking day. So every boy gets up in front of the whole school and gives a 2 to 3 minute speech, right? So they're doing that twice a year, every grade, right? And we all know that public speaking that's the hardest thing that a person can do. Adults will say it. So we want to get them comfortable with that skill early. So that's one of the ways that we talk about courage. Integrity, one of my favorite things to do. I have a lot of people visit the school because we want them to see what's happening. I always ask them, what did you notice? And if they don't, 9 times out of 10, they say this. If they don't, I point it out. We don't have locks on our lockers. Every boy has a locker. There are no locks on the lockers. The idea is you don't need a lock. You don't need it. No one's going to take anything from you. You're not going to bring anything that's, you're not supposed to. And if you do, you know that we can check. And so we're going to trust you. You're going to trust yourself, and you're going to trust your brothers, right? So it's that idea of there's always trust that's expected of you. And then the leadership piece, I spoke about empathy, but the leadership piece is there are different opportunities and different ways to be a leader. You could be elected to our community meeting council. You can be selected for student council, right? Those are leadership positions, but there are opportunities to be a leader every day, right? There are small ways to be a leader in your advisory. Are you going to walk the group to recess? Are you going to walk them back? Are you going to be in charge of taking the lunches? What's your advisory job, right? Are you going to check in on your brothers, making sure, or supporting them with their jobs, right? So all of those pieces, the courage to kind of stand up and do something that maybe you're afraid to do, but you still trust yourself to do it. The idea that you're really going to consider the perspective of other people when you're thinking about how to make a decision, or just the way in which you're interacting with the world. The fact that you're going to do the right thing even when no one's watching. All 3 of those things contribute to the type of leaders that we want to develop at our school.
From some previous conversations that we've had, you've explained to me the concept of brotherhood and that it's a really important part of your program. Could you share with me why that is, please?
Brotherhood is very important to our school. It's essential to what we do. You do not have to be best friends with everyone in the school, but you are GJA brothers. And what that means is that you will respect each other, you will be kind to each other, and you will preserve each other's dignity. That's the baseline expectation. And that's what allows us to talk about this idea of brotherhood, because, okay, maybe they might joke with me, but they're not trying to make fun of me. They're not trying to hurt my feelings. They're not trying to make me feel left out or feel different, right? That's essential. That's a very big distinction between I'm going to make fun of you or we're going to joke around in a playful way, right? And so the idea that they don't have to be best friends, but they do have to be GJA brothers. And that piece about a lifetime, if I can I tell a story?
Yeah, go for it.
My first year, I started in July. We have something called Summer Academy. And I started on the first day of Summer Academy, and an alum just showed up, right? An alum of the school just showed up. He was like, yeah, I was in the neighborhood. I was like, cool, great, nice to meet you. I'm really excited to be here. The next day, another alum showed up. And then Gavin, the program is 3 weeks. Pretty much every day, a different alum just showed up because they happened to be in the neighborhood. And after a while, after the second week, I was like, okay, I guess this is just what happens here. These boys are so connected. Anyway, the last day of Summer Academy, an alum who had graduated in 2010. Now, this is 12 years. He went to high school. He went to college, right? He ended up in Tennessee after college, and he was coming back to New York for a family event, right? He brought his girlfriend with him. They flew in on Wednesday night. On Thursday morning, he woke up with his girlfriend to take her around New York City and show her New York City. The first place he took his girlfriend was George Jackson Academy, the middle school that he went to 12 years ago. And that, for me, really encapsulated, one, their connection to the school, and then to each other, right? They still have text threads. They're still in contact with each other. They still hang out with each other. They'll say, my GJ brothers are my best friends, right? This is how they'll speak about the relationships that they formed with their classmates at their school. So that's the idea, right? It's dignity, respect, kindness, and you can expect that of a GJ alum for the rest of your life.
That's awesome. At the school, what's your approach to teaching and learning in the classroom?
What I love about our schedule and our approach is, we're small. And so each grade is, let's say, about 30 boys, right? So each section is about 15 kids. And then even within the two sections, we'll have an A and an B, an A section and a B section within one section. So the boys will be together either at 15 or they'll be in groups of 7 or 8, right, throughout the day. So there's a lot of opportunity for group work, and more individualized work. And so we're really intentional about that. That's why we're small. We spend about 70% of our week on math and humanities. We're really drilling down on those skills. Reading is incredibly important at our school. Boys they always have an independent reading book, and they're always encouraged, well, you're done early, pick out a book. We went on a brotherhood retreat, Gavin. We went on an overnight retreat with the 6th graders, and then the following week with the 7th graders. I told them, as part of your packing list is an independent reading book. Trust when I say that for the 6th graders, we had some downtime. Everybody pulled out a book. So did the 7th graders. We were up in a campsite and they were reading. And I remember taking pictures of it and sending to my friends. This is what makes our school different. So the teaching and learning. So one, there's that kind of breakdown in the schedule, right? The way we kind of break up the boys and the amount of time that we focus on our math and humanities. The boys are also going to learn biology in the 6th grade, chemistry in the 7th grade, and physics in the 8th grade. And that's a little bit different. So when they get to high school, they have a really solid foundation in the sciences. And we hear alums come back and say, yeah, we had an alum today. He's a senior at Avenues, and he was talking about his AP chemistry class. And he's like, I learned some of this in 7th grade at GJA. So it really helped me kind of understand what I was learning and be able to take it to the next level at the AP level. Our teachers they're bringing a lot of joy, Gavin. They really are, because they love what they teach and they love the boys. And I think that makes a huge difference because the boys feel really connected to their teachers, and they're going to engage more deeply and in more meaningful ways with the material that they're being taught.
Yep, 100% agree. Having the right teachers can make just such a difference to students. So when you're hiring staff, are there any particular qualities that you look for?
One, they have to love middle school. Middle school is different, than elementary and high school. It takes a certain level of just really kind of meeting the boys where they are, because you can have a 6th grader who's still a boy, and you can have an 8th grader that's full on teenager, and in the same building, in the same space. So you have to be able to manage all of that. They also have to really believe in our mission, right? They have to be really committed to the idea that we're helping these boys effectively change the trajectory of their life. We're not saving anybody, right? But we're trying to help them gain access to really amazing opportunities. So those things are really important. And then, of course, they have to have a passion for their content area. They have to be creative and flexible and, really be lifelong learners, right? So they're willing to look at their content, their curriculum, what they're teaching, make changes where necessary, keep what's working. So we're looking for passion, and we have passionate educators who really believe in boys and who particularly are drawn to middle school kids.
As human beings, one of the most essential needs we have is the need to belong. In school, children need a sense of belonging to be able to be productive learners. They need to be connected to their fellow students, connected to their teachers, to also be affirmed in who they are in a way that is positive.
We know how important the concept of connection before content is with our students. So at George Jackson Academy, how do you start the process of getting to know your students and making them feel like they belong and are a part of a brotherhood?
It really starts. We have something called Summer Academy. It's 3 weeks in July, Monday through Thursday, a half-day program, right? So for all the boys, the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. But it's really important for our 6th graders who are new to the school and new to the culture, that piece, because that's where we spend a lot of time. Hey, this is what we're about. This is what we do. And also really getting to know them so that come September, one, they've built relationships with the adults. They've built relationships with some of the teachers that they're going to have in the fall. They're comfortable with the commute. They're comfortable with the school day. They're ready to go. Right. And I think that is really important for us to set the tone. And then, I think most educators will tell you the relationship that you build with the kids is so important. So I mentioned I'm greeting them. Someone is greeting them in the morning every day, shaking their hand. Good morning, Ajib. Good morning, Kelvin. And kind of just checking in on them every morning. And then we're all in the hallway, like the teachers during passing time. On every floor, people are out, making sure the boys are going where they're going, but also engaging in conversation. So I'm engaging with conversation with the boys during passing time. So they're constantly being seen. they're being watched, we're like, because we're middle school faculty, but we're also engaging with them and building those relationships. And I think that's really important, because when it comes time to have a difficult conversation or to have a student hold them accountable for an action or behavior, it's not coming out of nowhere. It's not like, oh, this person is going to tell me that I did something wrong and I've never spoken to them, or I have no relationship with them. That's not the case. We have a relationship with all the boys. So when it comes time to have a difficult conversation, I can rely on that relationship that I've built on, so they can hear me, so they can know that I'm coming from a place of love, but that I am going to hold them accountable.
It seems really clear to you and your staff what the purpose of the school is. Do you find that students get on board with that quite quickly, or does it take them a little bit of time to get used to what your approach is?
Well, I had a boy, he came up to me. He was he's a sixth grader and really kind of popular kid, and really kind of had that in his head that being popular was important. And we were like, that doesn't matter here. Nobody's trying to be popular here. We're trying to be like good people. That's what makes you popular. You're a good person. And so he was a little kind of arrogant, right? And so we had a couple conversations about, nope, not here. There's no need for that arrogance. Anyway, Gabby, he comes up to me on Friday. He goes, Mr. Javier, on Thursday, Mr. Javier, can I talk to you? I'm thinking he's going to tell something, about something that happened on the bus. And I'm like, all right, let's, sure, come to my office. And I'm worried. I don't know what he's going to tell me. Something happened on the bus. He's like, I was on the bus, and we take the bus with me and this other student. We take the bus with a few kids. We, every day we see them every morning. And, I was sitting down, like kind of getting some, looking over some of my work. And the boy, he kind of knows me. He asked me what that was. So I told him what figurative language was. And I asked him, had you learned that? He's like, nah, he's in 7th grade, Mr. Javier. And then I asked him he asked me about this thing I was reading. And you're not learning that in your school? No, I'm not learning that. He said, Mr. Javier, and I get it. You said that we were doing something different here. Like, I get it. We're doing stuff here that other kids aren't doing my age. So I get it, Mr. Javier. And I just stood there. I was like, who am I talking to? like, who am I talking to? What do you mean? You get it. And he was looking at me like I was nuts. I was like, no, this is a beautiful thing. It's just, thank you for sharing this with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good day. But then I also had a mom. She stopped me on Friday morning. She was like, I know it's only been a month, Mr. Javier, but he reads now. He reads all the time. Like, he's just reading on his own, and then he finishes books. And I was like, did he not do this before? She's like, no, he didn't. He's doing it because of here.
Love it. That's so cool to hear. Is George Jackson Academy a private school, or is it a public school?
We operate as a nonprofit, right? We're an independent school accredited by the New York State Association of Independent Schools, but we operate as a nonprofit. And so whereas you have our competitors in New York City, they're charging $65,000 in tuition. 85% of their operating revenue comes from tuition. And then the rest are making up from fundraising. We're the inverse. We're raising 90% of our operating budget every year, which is over $3 million. And very little comes from tuition. We get about between $150,000 and $200,000 in tuition that we collect every year.
I guess it must be a fairly important part of your job then to make sure that the fundraising efforts keep happening so that the academy can keep thriving. When you became the principal, was that part of the job that you had to learn pretty quickly?
It was a little bit terrifying. It was a little bit terrifying because I feel a huge responsibility to the school. So I wanted to do a good job for the school. Right. And then 2, I was a diversity practitioner for 10 years. I served as a director of diversity at 2 top schools in New York City. And that's a position that for many years was really kind of undervalued, I think, by independent schools. And rarely did they really acknowledge the level of leadership that's required to do that job effectively. And so I also felt the sense of pressure of having been a former director of diversity, stepping into a school leader role and making sure that I did a good job for all the practitioners out there who are doing this job. And the other part too, Gavin, is you realize as a director of diversity, you're doing a lot of the things that are required of a school leader. But I also didn't know that I would have to be our HR person. I didn't know that I would have to learn what it takes to replace a roof or how to handle a boiler. There were just a lot of things, or our 403 plan. So there were a lot of things that I've been asked to do, or I've had to learn to do that I didn't know I would have to. But I think the biggest thing was just feeling a sense of responsibility to the school and to a lot of folks that came before me to do a good job so that I can continue opening the door for other folks like me so they can walk through that door as well and show what they're capable of.
What's been one of the main lessons that you've learned as a leader since being the principal of the school?
The right decision is not always the easy decision. That the right decision is not going to be the right decision for everyone. And no matter what you do, you're never going to please 100% of the constituents that you serve. And that you have to make sure that you have enough information to make an informed decision and then to trust your ability to make the right decision in the moment.
And how have you grown personally?
You know, there's this concept called imposter syndrome, right? Originally, it was called imposter phenomenon. And I read this amazing article in the Harvard Business Review. It was by two women of color, Jodi Ann Burry and Chika Talushan. And I apologize if I'm mispronouncing their names, but they reframed this concept in talking about it's not imposter syndrome. It's really about the systems in which you operate and what the expectations of that system are. And so I've kind of been on this journey to getting to this point where I think what I've learned is, and I acknowledge the fact that I'm a man being able to say this, but it's just a rejection of the concept of imposter syndrome. I will not be party to or privy to something I'm not going to be complicit to something that's going to make me question my abilities despite how hard I've worked. And so that's really the biggest thing. You know, I came in never having been ahead of school and really wondering, can I do this? It turns out that I can. And I'm grateful for having had the opportunity to learn that I'm capable of doing this high level work.
Have you developed partnerships with other local schools that can help the boys in the next phase of development, say after they've graduated from George Jackson?
Yeah, we have a ton of schools that come and visit GJA to talk about their schools and that then go on and take our boys. And so we have really strong relationships with schools like Packer Collegiate, Fordham Prep, Regis, Xavier, Dalton. We're forming great relationships with Trinity. Church Farm has been an amazing partner to us. Cristo Rey, Brooklyn, and Cristo Rey, Manhattan. Again, amazing partners, schools. Just had some boys go off to George School. It's really important, the relationships that we have with the schools, especially the ones that come and visit us. I just want to acknowledge some of those schools. And if I left the school out, I apologize. But that relationship is really important. So I just want to say thank you to those schools.
Teachers matter. A good teacher, a supportive teacher, they really do matter. That's one of the things that's amazing about GJA, that all the teachers are good and supportive.
We all work together as teachers and administrators to serve our boys. And when they leave GJA and come back, they always tell us, you know, you guys made such a difference.
I graduated in 2014. I didn't realize how much GJA has impacted me until after I left GJA.
As we finish our time together, Ramon, what are some of the hopes that you have for the young men of the Academy?
That they become good men, that they remain connected to each other, that they are empathetic people who work hard. And I want our boys to be connected to the communities of which they're part and to be connected to each other so that they're engaging with society, that they're engaging with life in meaningful and positive ways, especially men of color. You know, especially Black and brown men, Asian men, that they're building real brotherhoods that they'll carry with them for life, and that they're setting the tone for the younger men and boys that are coming behind them.
And what hopes do you have for your own future, Ramon?
I want to continue to grow as a leader. I want to be able to be kind of a voice in boys' education. And I want to continue to be a positive model for Black and Latino men wherever I go.
Ramon, it's been a privilege speaking with you. I wish you and all the boys in the Academy all the very best in the future.
Thank you, Gavin. It's been an honor. Appreciate it.
Next time on the Global Ed Podcast.
The type of insecurity that we have in my country is terrorist issue. And you can see that sometimes those terrorist groups can even enroll some of their young soldiers from those kids, where we have some students who drop out of school who are enrolled as young soldiers who work with these people, unfortunately.
In the next episode, I speak with Yaya, an educator from Burkina Faso. Yaya shares the challenges that students and teachers face there and what he and others are doing to raise up the next generation. If you have enjoyed listening to the Global Ed Podcast, please subscribe and follow me, Gavin Kinch, on LinkedIn.